Back in 2008, when I was finishing university and going for interviews, I was finding that it was difficult to get clothing that would fit a more ample bosomed lady, going into the high street and finding that the buttons were popping off and that sort of thing. So I thought maybe there's a business idea here, started talking to people and doing a bit of research and finding that there was very few people who were doing it, and what was available on the market was aimed at a much older clientele. So got some prototypes set up, got a small website set up, and before I realised it, orders were coming in and people were requesting a sort of more expansive range. So before we knew it, lingerie was added, swimwear was added, and it just went from strength to strength over the course of the last 5 years. I mean, a lot of people ask me all the time, how on earth, how do you get the ball rolling in the first place to get prototypes made up? And people also ask me if I'm from a design or a textile background, which I'm not. My degree was in English literature, so I really didn't have a clue where to even begin. Google's always a really great starting place, and I kind of did what I guess a lot of that startups do, and that's Googling how to get a clothing brand, how to get something manufactured. Found out what the trade journals were, which was Draper's magazine. In the back of there's classified ads which have people advertising cut, make and trim. So just making a lot of phone calls, picking up the phone and just telling people what you're looking for. I want a sample of a blouse making, can you do it? No, you can't. Do you know anyone who can? And before you know it, they'll say, you know, I know a lady called Joan or something, here's her number. And after you've made a few phone calls, you'll eventually find someone who can say, oh yeah, I can do that for you. And it's just a matter of picking up the phone, asking lots of people, using Google, and using your common sense a little bit as well. When you're starting up a business, I mean, the hardest thing I think for everybody is getting the finance and the funding to set it up in the first place. You know, you get off the starting blocks, but then you need more money to develop your business, but sometimes you're not quite big enough to get the backing of the banks. So you're sort of in between that stage. If you're not quite a startup and you're not quite established, you're just somewhere in the middle. I went on Dragon's Den, and although I didn't get the investment in the den, that courted the attention of private investors once it aired on television. So I was lucky enough to get private investment, but it took 3-4 years of trying, speaking to a lot of people, a lot of closed doors, a lot of rejections. So I guess the moral of the story is really to keep trying every time the door closes, because eventually it might take a long time, but there will be a way of financing it. Probably the best advice that I could give to a startup is to be really careful of who you're working with. So make sure that you do your background checks on any potential suppliers or business associates. And also as well, PR is a really great tool. You don't have to use an expensive PR agency, just local PR, sending out press releases. There's plenty of templates out there. Get your name out there, and once your name starts to go, using the internet and social media and all that sort of thing, things tend to sort of grow quite quickly from there.